Hello and welcome to our next episode of Fellowship of Essential Oils. Myself and Liz, we're both in good mood today, it seems. Maybe that's because the oil we're talking about today is Mandarin. How are you today, Liz?
I am in a very Mandarin mood. In fact, specifically, I feel like I'm in a Red Mandarin mood.
So this is the thing. You last week said you'd like to talk about Mandarin, and I threw it back in your face and go, which Mandarin? Because there are three types of Mandarin oils that are available: green, yellow, and red. So let's talk a little bit about where they come from. So first of all, a bit of history. Mandarins have actually been around for thousands of years. They originated in China, where first of all they were cultivated primarily for the king. No one else was allowed to have the Mandarin fruits apart from the king. And then I guess he got a bit more generous, and then the higher noble statesmen were allowed. And then obviously throughout time now, we're all allowed a bit of Mandarin fruit as well. But the essential oil comes from the rind. And when we're looking at this green, this yellow, and the red, there's a really beautiful story on how we get to these three different oils. You see, what happens is for a mandarin to grow properly on the tree, you actually have to take off up to 60% of the fruit early on. And a lot of the time, that was just being kind of thrown away. It's kind of the byproduct, and so the fruit could grow, and then we could have the fruit to eat, and the juice, and make the essential oil out of the peel. But people started going, well, hold on, we could take that and steam distill that. And so when we're looking at green, yellow, and red mandarin, we're looking at the unripe, which is the green mandarin, the yellow, which is the semi-ripe, and then we've got the red mandarin, which is the fully ripe essential oil. But for me, the chemistry is slightly different. One exciting thing about green mandarin is typically green mandarin doesn't have the photosensitivity on the skin, as you will get from your other citrus fruits as well. But I'm excited. We've got lots to cover today. Liz, why do you love mandarin? Well, where should we start?
Well, we always talk about like my healing click of oils, and it's definitely in there. I do love Mandarin, and funnily enough, I really don't like the fruit. The fruit just tastes like school dinners to me. We used to have tinned, and my mum always used to say it's ration food, and I was like, I believe you, it's horrible. Don't like the taste at all. So if you like me and you don't like the taste, let me reassure you that the smell is very different to the fruit. It's very fresh and light, but overall it's very gentle. And I think I often talk about how I don't like peppermint and I don't like rosemary. They're very aggressive oils, whereas I get very overstimulated by caffeine and stuff like that. So this is a really great oil for me because it's very happy, but it's not in your face. And I love that. And I use it a lot on children because I find that it has this lovely gentleness to it. Yeah. What about you? Why do you love it?
I think I love it because of its playful energy as well. The one question I wanted to ask you is: there's obviously many different citrus oils. There's orange, there's tangerine, there's grapefruit, there's bergamot, lemon, and so on. For me, it's got the most childlike energy of the three. And I was interested, why would you reach for a mandarin in your clinic rather than, for example, orange or tangerine?
I always think that tangerine, Mum wrote in her book, it cuts through spite. And that really resonates with me, tangerine. And I do think, and so immediately I go spiteful people, and that goes over there, and orange, I think is quite. It's not an aphrodisiac oil, but it's kind of got a bit of a sexiness to it. I think I've said before, I always use it when I feel like I've been slapped with the ugly stick, And so again, that doesn't feel very childlike to me. But mandarin is so lovely for colic in children. Lots of different ways. It's for tummy upsets. In fact, in France, it's like their traditional thing to use for kids with tummy upsets. So like a little massage on the tummy. Or my eldest had horrific colic, and I just used to put a few drops onto a warm pillow and put her over the warm pillow, and so that it was almost just the vapors coming up, and it was tremendously effective. And the other thing is, of course, it's very restful and sedative and soothing, whereas when you have like orange, it doesn't have that sedative. It's sort of antidepressant. It is anti-anxiolytic, but it's kind of just like, I'm still okay. Whereas Mandarin just goes, oh. And probably the most effective time I've used it on children, I always use it for chicken pox. So, and for shingles, obviously, but that's not children. And I usually do a blend of lavender, chamomile and mandarin in the bath, and just to stop them itching. So again, we have this idea of these little kids, and it's, as you say, it is playful, and there's almost that association with chicken pox parties. Are you too young to know what a chicken pox party is?
That's when you want, if one child's got chicken pox, you want everyone to get chicken pox when they're children, because it's worse as an adult, so you bring all the kids together. Correct.
And that was a big thing when I was little, and it always makes me think of how we had these parties, and it wasn't anybody's birthday. We didn't really get why we're allowed to do all these fantastic things, but then suddenly everyone's got chicken pox. And it does have that resonance with me. Yeah. What about you?
Yeah. I think, when I really lean into this, I think it's a beautiful oil for, first of all, a lot of oils are often described as being uplifting, and I think that can be a bit of a confusing word, because you could say peppermint is uplifting, and you could say the citruses like mandarin are uplifting. How I like to differentiate is your mint oils are more stimulating and uplifting to the mind and the mental process, whereas the citruses are more uplifting to the emotion. So like you were saying, for baths, and even people are like, oh, can I put citrus oils, including mandarin, in my diffuser at night? I'm like, definitely, because it helps to elevate the mood. That's not going to keep you up. You're just going to go to bed in a better mood in that way. I think for me, citruses are, as a whole, as a group, they're very much associated with that solar energy. I think they're a beautiful way to start the day. So if you can get them in the diffuser in the morning, or, wearing them in that kind of way, they help to elevate the mood. And a little question I encourage everyone to do each morning is just check in with yourself. Because a lot of the time we wake up, our phone's already beeping, telling us what we need to do. And we're getting so many stimuli from outsiders telling us, this is what you need to do, this is what you need to think, this is where you need to be, blah, 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 blah. And we forget to check in with ourselves. So one activity I'd encourage everyone who's watching or listening to this is, when you get up in the morning, what do I need today? Do I need a nice grounding oil? And you might go for something like a cedarwood or a sandalwood to start off the day. Or do I need something uplifting? And if you're feeling a bit flat and you need an uplifting, then mandarin would be a really great one to pop in the diffuser and just set the tone for the day. And you're getting into the habit of checking in what you need rather than just what the world tells you that you need all the time.
Yeah, I agree with that. There's a couple of things to address from that, my thoughts from that. The first is that I quite often have questions from people who are students, and perhaps coming up towards their finals, and they're saying to me, I'm using essential oils, but I still can't concentrate. It's still not going in. And am I doing something wrong? And when I look at them, they've got so many different essential oils going on. They've got some going stimulating them, and they're using peppermint before they go to bed. And funnily enough, they're not going to sleep then. And so then this sort of idea of paring down, and as you say, just checking in each day, I'm going to use one oil. This is what I'm going to use today. I think that's really, really helpful. But you kind of touched on one of my favourite sort of quandaries in my head, just about using diffusers when you're asleep. So did you know that at a certain point, as we go into sleep, we stop registering what we smell?
Okay.
This is why we have smoke alarms, because you can't smell the smoke anymore. So for a long time, I was like, well, so does that mean, do we keep using lavender oil or not? Because if we can't smell it, what's the point? But then I've noticed some rodent trials where they're proving that the rats, maybe, I do think rats, not mice, but anyway, rodents, their brains still register this kind of peacefulness when they're asleep, even though they have that same process. So I don't know if it is helpful to use diffusers at night or not. But certainly I do think there's that lovely element of if it's still going when you wake up, then it's lovely and bright. But of course, the other thing is, don't overstimulate yourself by leaving it on for too long, is the other thing. And for
Yeah.
God's sake, don't use a candle diffuser all night and go to sleep.
Oh, definitely not. No, for sure. Speaking of the sensing the smell, I've read a study, and I've also spoken to people personally, that don't have a sense of smell, or have a very weak sense of smell, or maybe they've lost their sense of smell after COVID or things like that. And it does seem, on all accounts of the information I've collected, that even if you can't smell it, it's still having an impact.
Yeah, so my dad had no sense of smell, and he was definitely like okay with like topical use, but didn't really register like that much from inhalants. But that's a slightly different thing, because actually your brain's physically switching something off at night to use it in a different way, isn't it? The brain wants to rest and restore. So it is a different thing, because I had thought that myself and then taught myself out of it. So it's really interesting to kind of just watch to see, well, is somebody going to come up with an answer for this or not?
Yeah, definitely. I'm just thinking, your mum and dad were, of all the people your mum could have married, your dad, who had no sense of smell when your mum's an aromatherapist, was,
Yes, it happened. It happened actually after they divorced. He got a tumor on his pituitary
Oh,
gland.
no.
So when you watch James Bond and the guy's jaws and he's huge.
Yeah.
Same disease. Yeah, acromegaly. Yeah. So it was a cruel thing, but actually, yeah, it was. As you say, interesting, isn't it? Interesting.
Yeah. So you mentioned a few physical uses for Mandarin. Any others that you kind of feel that we could use Mandarin for? I would use it mainly for that mood elevation.
Certainly, yeah. Tummies is a big thing. Stomach upsets generally. I know that there's a lot of research into Mandarin, whether what colour, I don't know, and marjoram for Helicobacter pylori, that has that sort of causes gastro problems generally, and it's really coming out well. So like tummies on all different levels. But for me specifically, I use Mandarin for stretch marks. So I always encourage mums to use it late on in pregnancy, but also it's a specific for long-term stress. So, and this is probably what I'll talk about when we talk about in the masterclass and go deeper as to how it supports the adrenals and what happens to the adrenals to cause negative things like inflammation and stuff over time. And so coming in at a level of supporting the adrenals in long-term stress can really shut all that off quite quickly.
Beautiful.
So, yeah, it is. And sleep, somebody's got to the point where they're not sleeping because they're so stressed. It's a straight to sleep job.
Nice one there. And combining it then with something like lavender or Roman chamomile?
Yeah. And funnily enough, actually, I've just said marjoram. I'd also use marjoram. Because that almost works on what they're called, the cycles.
The circadian cycles?
Thank you. Yeah, on the body clock, to bring the body clock back into line. Yeah.
I think we kind of have a rule in our community that citruses make everything better. So like you're talking about the student studying before, if you need to just pop a couple of drops, if you think Mandarin is a drop of happiness, when can a problem not be improved with a drop of happiness kind of thing? So I think in study blends, pop a bit of Mandarin there. In the sleep blend, bit of Mandarin there. It's not gonna, it's a nice addition. And often we try and we experiment with different blends and they don't smell too good. Citruses can normally fix any problem there as well. If you've kind of put a bit too much in the diffuser, but a citrus can sort that out as well, I find.
Yeah, and when you read, like, I'm not a perfumer. My mum was a perfumer, I'm not. Gare Glaze, fantastic perfumer, my other business partner. But what I do know is that Mandarin is often used as a modifier for citruses. So you want to have that lovely citrus fragrance, but some of them can be really quite overwhelming to blends, whereas because you've got the smell without it being powerful. And of course, if you use Green Mandarin, it has a green fragrance to it, and so that's quite got a lot of diversity of use. You can use it in a lot of flexible. It's quite of a flexible thing. Yeah.
Very much so. I think the biggest mistake people can ever make about citruses is saying all citruses are the same. And I think as we continue on with this series, we're gonna go through them all one by one and hopefully bring them to life in different ways. So their chemistry may be similar, but their aroma is, subtly different. Their impacts are different, and energetically, you're going to find that that's where they really kind of spur off into different divisions as well. So
yeah, and actually, the last week I've really tried to focus on what is the difference between the different mandarins, because I wanted to be able to say this is the difference. And really, the only big difference I can see, there's a slight difference in the levels of limonene, but it's the yield of the essential oil. When they're unripe, they don't have much essential oil, but obviously you can see how like the rind would get thicker and then the yield goes up. But so the uses can't see are that much different. But I think from a therapeutic point of view, I always say, go back to what Rhiannon Lewis taught me. How does that make you feel? They do feel different, but like physically, they're not that different. So I think if you're looking to sort of engage with somebody who's quite traumatized or who is very upset, it's worth just kind of checking in which one feels safer or nicer or friendlier to you than the others.
Yeah. Now, I've spent a lot of time kind of dividing between red, yellow, and green Mandarin. But for you, what on an energetic level, how are you finding the difference between the two? Are you able to separate them?
I do think they feel energetically very different. Yeah, I think that Red Mandarin, that does have more geraniol in it slightly, is almost like a bouncy ball, It's like so vibrant and, we're going to have a great time today and we're all excited, and it's almost a bit like actually I've just been on a weekend away with my girlfriend, so this is like, imagine that you're at the train station when you're going and everyone's bubbly and all nicely turned out, but the Green Mandarin is more like when you're coming back. I've had a great time, but I'm quite quiet now, more relaxed. I've been filled up, but don't talk to me, I've had enough, it's a bit like that.
Yeah. Well, the analogy I loved was actually offered to us from one of our farmers who farms Mandarin, and he actually likened the three different oils to the three stages of a woman's life. So he said, the green Mandarin is like a young child. It's got that innocence, that potential of what will it become, and the fruit is still budding, and what will the fruit grow to be as well. Yellow Mandarin is kind of like the mother. She's growing, she's becoming self-actualized, she's starting to realize, she's working her way through different things. And Red Mandarin is like the crone, the elderly woman. She's become fully realized she is that as well. And so I've often seen them as, we often hear the term in paganism talking about the maiden, the mother, and the crone. For me, green, yellow, and red are the maiden, the mother, and the crone. And that's how I find that they divide really nicely in that way.
Well, and it was 3 crones at the station, so I can see my girls will not thank me for saying that, but it was. There was not a natural grey hair in sight. What was I will say? But because it is the fullness, isn't it? It's gone almost through the life cycle, the richness. The seed has been made, and so that's a beautiful analogy. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd love to work through each of those oils, kind of starting with the green as well. So green Mandarin for me, it's a really good new moon oil. So actually you can liken this to the lunar cycle as well. So green Mandarin is a beautiful one for the new moon. I also really love it for the heart chakra. I find with the citruses, I'm really basic with the citruses, the color of the rind is the color of the chakra. And so lime is obviously our other green citrus oil. There's a difference. Lime has a real zest and almost a bit of a warrior energy to it, whereas green Mandarin is so childlike. And I think there's some beautiful things that as adults we can learn from children. One, lack of discrimination. Children don't care what color you are, where you're from, how much money you've got. If you're nice, they're going to be nice to you. But children also have that kind of I'm sure you've been in a situation in your life where children will blurt out what they're thinking without the filter. And I think sometimes we need to let away some of that guard and to be a bit more open and honest. And I find green Mandarin is really great for, first of all, healing the heart and being gentle on the heart if there has been some heartbreak, but not just with romantic heartbreak, but like the being screwed over in life. It brings us back to the knowledge and the courage the child has as well. So that's why I really love green Mandarin.
I haven't got much to add to that. I think it's lovely. You're quite right. It does smell quite like lime, and yet feel completely different, doesn't it? As you say, lime takes the world on and shakes it by the shoulders somewhat. Mum always used to talk about how Mandarin was like afternoon tea at Raffles. So very dignified, so very polite chatter, interesting chatter, things that are said but not said, that's and I like that. And that feels exactly right for me. And I always think of people in lovely white suits, that they haven't dropped anything down themselves yet. It's very polite and not guarded, but gentle. And I also can see where you're going to go with the Red Mandarin being full moon, and I would agree with that. That feeling of things really coming to completion and then pouring over. But I think they're both Venus oils in different way. And what's interesting is, of course, you do have that red pink element to heart chakra energy, don't you? And you've got them both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Green Mandarin also would be a really great one to add to love blends and different things, because again, as adults, we can always come back to that inner child and that inner child healing, but we can also bring a bit, like, even in love, sometimes we get a little bit too serious about it all. And, I think the funness about the start of a relationship is we almost are like, you see two people in love and sometimes you're like, you two are like little kids. Do you know what I mean? We get giggly and fun, and we lose that as the relationship goes on. And I think Green Mandarin kind of brings in that fun in that way.
Yeah, definitely. And I think what you said earlier about uplifting, the same can be said of love. That's just one word with so many different dimensions. And every person that you come into contact with, say, well, what's your problem with your love life? It will be a different problem. And,
yes,
thinking about from what you've said, it'd be quite nice magically to think about, right, okay, so we've got the green because it's a budding love, or we've got, the challenges of the love that's coming to an end, maybe if somebody's dying, or or if somebody's left you, and so that what does the planet know?
Yeah.
The Red Mandarin. I love the idea that I didn't know the story about the different the fruit being taken off the tree, but that's obvious when I think about it, because of course you can't feed all of the fruit if you're going to be a farmer. You've got to give it to the optimum. But so there's a real specialness then to these ones that do make it to be red. And so in the same way that there are relationships that will really stand the test of time, and so as they do, will have different challenges to those that the rest of us will have never been lucky enough to have, and it's really interesting to see how the plant might know those things.
Yeah, for sure. Now, talking about moving on with that kind of moon analogy that I was sharing, and you said Red Mandarin for the full, I actually kicked that round to the dark moon and used Yellow Mandarin on the full moon. Yes, so if we think, I think Yellow Mandarin is a beautiful one for us in our middle ages. Do you know what I mean? For many people that, we're in that mother stage, we're birthing not just children, but we're birthing projects, we're initiatives and all that type of thing. And again, we can get so stuck in I'm adulting. Like, I've got to be serious because I've got adult things to do, and I don't have time to muck around. And then Yellow Mandarin will kind of walk into that stage and go, are you serious? This is all just a game. And it's a really great one for helping to take that tension. It would probably be nice in study blends, a Yellow Mandarin, because it brings that, like, yes, I know that you want to do well in this exam, but it's not the end of your life. Enjoy it.
Exactly. And so that lightness of also to enjoy the study, because the other thing is, God, it's so boring and I've had enough. So it brings that lightness, but also kind of lifts that, oh my God, if I fail, this is going to be absolutely catastrophic. Mandarin goes, is it though? Is it really though? Just be a bit lighter with yourself. And of course, losing that stress, as simple as that, helps the memory,
Very much so. I think, I may get myself in trouble here, but I've had conversations with many, year 12 in Australia students that's their last year and their final exams. And I tell them that I did really well in my exams, but it actually made no difference to where I am today and my success. And I think when you're in school, especially, there is such pressure of if you don't do this, your life will go downhill. And I've been back to school reunions, and academic performance and success in life, they don't really match up, do they?
No.
So, I think Yellow Mandarin brings in that real kind of, lighten up, have a bit more fun. And it would be, a really great one in that type of way as well. Also, in relation to the full moon, we know that when we're working and when we're manifesting with the full moon, we want to become a vibrational match of what we want to attract into our lives. And again, we might go, okay, full moon, I need to attract money. Come on, money, come on. Or, I need to heal this. Come on, let's heal. And we get all tense, and, it's almost like we're energetically constipated, trying to squeeze out a manifestation in that way. We want to feel, we have to become it before the universe doesn't home deliver. We must meet the universe halfway, and we have to become what we want to draw into our lives. I think Yellow Mandarin, working with other oils that you might want to work magically on a full moon, could be a really great one to go, if it feels good, it's in alignment. And so to lift us up to that, again, full moon magic and whatever you do, whether it be big practices or little things, should be, again, fun and a celebration. And Yellow Mandarin works really well in that context.
It does. And of course, thinking about manifesting in that way, that idea of becoming something, having the vibration of something, the vibration of money is orange. The vibration of beauty and success is orange, and so just the very act of just being with that oil and kind of just allowing it to infuse, you are immediately saying abundance, fruition, but that's the actual definition of the word fruition. It's a citrus fruit.
Yeah. So that does bring us to the Red Mandarin, the fully realized, the crone. And I find it interesting, if we look at in life, we start off life in the first few years and everything's a game, and we're kind of very playful. And then we get into adulthood and we're like, oh, this is all very serious. And then as we start to get older, we realize actually nothing really matters. And you end up, in your latter years, you're a lot more playful when you don't give two hoots about what you're wearing and, if you fart in public and all those types of things as well. And for me, that's Red Mandarin. It's like, let's have a ball.
I'm still worried about farting in public.
I'm not there yet either. But hey,
but I agree, and it is a silly. Yes, it's like I say, bouncy and silly, isn't it? It's a really lovely oil.
Yeah, and the difference between that green and red is red brings in the wisdom of experience, the wisdom of growth. That we've been through it. And if you think about the literal fruit, it's gone through its whole cycle. It's about, if we were to leave that fruit on the tree naturally, it would drop to the ground, it would die, it would decay, and it would then give birth to the seeds within it, and maybe hopefully another mandarin tree in that kind of context of the cycle of life type of thing.
Yeah, and if you think of, we say Halloween or Samhain, the colour of that time, again, orange, isn't it, because of the pumpkins? And that the energy of that time is very much about letting go.
Yes.
What's left. And I was only talking to somebody the other day actually about this. There's one of the things we all know now from watching this is that I can be very angry. But one of the most useful visualizations that I was ever taught was just the final leaf falling from the tree. It just goes, and you don't have to be like, I am going to curse you, I'm going to be vengeance, I'm going to all of these things, I'm angry about all of these things. Just allowing it to let go, and really, those very ripe fruits are almost there, aren't they? They're almost there. And so that's quite a good way, I think, of talking about how to just be light. You don't have to hold on to all of that stuff, just be light.
Yeah. And Red Mandarin kind of spoke to me for a second there and said, at the end of something, whether it be the end of someone's life or the end of any chapter of our life, think about what has been gained, not what has been lost.
Exactly. What was learned.
What was learned, and just what, if you think about funerals, we're like, oh, they're no longer in my life. I don't have this, I don't have that. But rather than, let's celebrate what they did gift to us in our life, because we know that we can't stop the cycle of life. and how can we celebrate that? And if we look back at the dark moon, the final days of that lunar cycle, that is when before we go into the new moon and start setting new intentions to bring to birth in the full moon and see how it goes, it is that kind of, it's really good around the dark moon to kind of, I like to think of the dark moon as being December 31st. It's New Year's Eve. I look at the lunar cycle like the solar cycle, or like the calendar year kind of thing. And we go, okay, well, what have we learned from the last year? What have we gained? What do we not want to repeat? And then we start that again. So I think having that real Red Mandarin light approach of life, of, okay, let's try it again. What worked, what didn't work, and bring it in those types of meditations around the dark moon. And a lot of the time we might think about dark moon oils being, very kind of dark oils like juniper berry or black pepper or myrrh, very introspective, guaiac wood, things like that. But bring a bit of Red Mandarin in there to bring that joy and that celebration of that stage in life as well.
Yeah, and I think there's an element, it hadn't occurred to me before we've chatted today, but I think now I might start thinking, right, I'm treating a child, so therefore I'm probably going to go Green Mandarin. I'm treating an old person, so I think that maybe I'll see what they think about Red Mandarin, So because it's almost like that vibration fits, that cycle through the orange.
Yeah. I would even, anyone who's using the mandarins for any type of healing, what are we trying to heal here? Are we trying to heal something to do with not necessarily a physical child, but any inner child healing? Or when we need to go back to the inner child or bring out that inner child in someone, that's where I'd really lean into the Green Mandarin. If I'm working with the adult's mind, and remember that yellow, although the color of the solar plexus in many traditions is also a color of the intellect. And so if it's that adult thinking mind and too much in the head, that's where I go for yellow. And the red is that wise, if I had to give it, it's almost got that kind of, those, not an owl, but like a coyote or a wolf, the wise, knowing, but playful. In Australian mythology, it would be the dingo. Do you know what I mean? Like the kind of the trickster, kind of the knowing trickster or the court jester.
That's kind of fox in our culture.
Fox, yeah.
Which is orange, yeah.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think it's where I haven't personally, I don't know if you have, I've never actually had exposure to any other green citrus oil. So I haven't had an unripe orange or an unripe grapefruit oil before. Have you ever had experience with them? Is it only Green Mandarin that you've had?
So a green citrus would be bergamot, wouldn't it? But an unripe, not.
I guess it's the only
and
unripe
also lime
oil.
as well. But not an unripe one. No, I don't think I have. But then another video for the future is going to be the pettigrains, because I'm very into the pettigrains. Yes, so there's like the twigs, aren't they? Before, which are sometimes before the fruits form.
Very much so, definitely. So with the chakras, for me, I actually go green, yellow, and red. I actually place, more the sacral kind of thing. So I move down the chakras with the 3 different oils. For you, were you feeling that all the sacral chakra? What were you kind of?
No, I agree with what you said.
Okay, cool.
I think they're more. I think of all of them, they're all heart chakra. But then, as you say, the resonance can go up and go down the chakras a bit as well. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. And you were feeling that the mandarins were more in alignment with Venus?
Yeah, but also Jupiter. That lovely, expansive, jolly nature. But the only thing is, Jupiter can go overboard, can't it? Be very expansive, and I really don't think that she goes overboard. That kind of just like, let's just stretch a bit, shall we? Let's not be so rigid. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. I think for me, all citruses will always kind of generally come under the umbrella of the sun. So a bit of the sun, but also with this beautiful analogy that's just sung so beautifully to me, and the correspondences keep lining up. And again, our masterclass that's coming up at the end of the month, we will dive a little bit deeper into them as well. I kind of find the mandarins can also be under that moon domain of just moon work in that way. So I like to place them with the moon as well as my lunar citrus.
Yes, I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So next week, is there anything we need to shamelessly self-promote? I think it's our masterclass.
Yes, only the masterclass at the moment for me. unless anybody wants to buy some of my books, in particular, next week's oil, you might want to gen up because we're doing helichrysum next week, aren't we? So don't forget, there is a book on sale that you can gen up beforehand. But otherwise, yeah, come and have some fun at the masterclass talking about the Mandarin. And so what are the other oils? Helichrysum? What else?
So we're going to be talking about lavender. We're going to go deeper into lavender. We're going to go through the mandarins and a bit more in mandarins, and we'll talk a bit more about moon magic, and you've got some other physical remedies for mandarin, I believe. Helichrysum and Peru balsam.
Yes.
And the 4 that we're going to go into. Now, this is going to be about a 2-hour session. So we want people to come. We don't want you to just listen to us. We want it to be interactional. So you can ask questions mainly around those 4 oils, but we'll have time at the end probably if you're like, what can you tell me about thyme oil? Or we can kind of go off on little tangents. So
we had a lovely message. I should have done my homework before we came on and said the name of the person. I can't remember. I think it was Amanda, but I can't remember. But she said that she would like to do Palo Santo. So in August, we'll be doing Palo Santo. So if you've got any requests, put them in the comments. And also, if there's anything that you do want us to cover in the masterclass and you think, oh, you didn't go deeper in that, I would like to know more, put those in the comments as well so we can really answer what you want to know.
Yeah. I want you to think of this as though you're actually getting to sit down in a cafe with me and Liz. We're going to have a coffee, have a cup of tea, and just have a natter about these. And we're going to just give you a whole lot more. It's kind of like the behind the scenes look, because we're like, we've got no restrictions. We try very hard to keep these episodes into half an hour. And I think we struggle each week and normally blow it out to around 45 minutes. But we're going to have a lot more time, and it's just going to be great to have people ask questions as well. One thing I will mention, that everyone who registers, if it's not a good time zone for you, this is the problem with the world not being flat, is some of you are going to be asleep when we're doing it. You get the recording, whether you're live or not. Everyone who books gets the recording, and you can listen to that over and over again and keep cutting back to that whenever you need to as well. So don't let the time zone put you off totally. And if you have a question and you can't make it live, send it through and we'll be sure to answer that question as part of the recording so you can hear your answer when you watch the replay as well.
Yeah, and I guess it's worth just saying as well, when the last couple of days, don't leave it till the last couple of days to leave questions onto the comments, or else they won't get addressed. You need to get your comments down fairly quick.
Yep, definitely, for sure. So next week we're going to dive into helichrysum. I'm very excited about this oil. I'm going to speak mainly from my own personal experience. It's an oil I've got a lot of healing experiences with on a physical level, but there's something astrologically happening in the coming days that I find it's really relevant to as well. But I'm not going to give any hints on that unless you know your astrology. You have to wait and see.
Now I'm going to go and do some research.
there's a big, I'm just going to say that the 23rd of July is going to be a big day astrologically, and we'll touch on that, in next week's episode. But apart from that, thank you very much for joining us. Go grab your ticket for the masterclass. Tickets are limited, so if they sell out, we won't open up anymore because we want it to be an intimate gathering. So make sure you grab your tickets as soon as possible. Until next week, we'll see you then.
Bye-bye.